Hello there, I'm Robert McKay. The channel, as you saw, is Whiskey for Beginners. The reason I was moving the title cards, in quotes of course, the reason I was moving them back and forth is I noticed that when I held them still, the ink tended to fade out on the screen, but as I was flipping them and they moved, then it was more visible. I know there's a word for it, but it didn't pop into my head. And so in recent videos, and I've not seen the results yet because I record and then they're in the can and I upload them when I do. My regular day is Sunday. For reviews, I generally record and then upload immediately, but for various reasons I have 2 reviews in the can now. Or is it 1? 1 or 2 reviews in the can that I've not uploaded. I'll upload one later tonight. Won't be this one. This is a review, by the way. But then I'll see how moving the title cards works, and I'll know better how to make it more visible for y'all. But I said this is a review, so it's mostly full, so it does weigh a bit, but I'm not that weak. What I'm going to review for you here is a bottle from Balcones Distilling. It is Mirador, Texas single malt whiskey. Mirador in Spanish. Es el Mirador. Now, I've not looked the word up, and I am not fluent in Spanish. I can speak some of it. There was an episode of MASH, don't ask me which, where they're interviewing a young Korean lady. The actress was not Korean, but there aren't a ton of Korean actors and actresses, and there were even fewer then. But some Oriental lady was playing the character, Chinese I think she was. Anyway, they're interviewing her, and maybe it was Frank, I don't know. Anyway, the question was, do you speak English? Some of it. Do I speak Spanish? Some of it. But I believe Mirador would be the one who's looking for something, the watcher maybe. Although, well, escuchar is to look for. Mirar is, I guess mirar would be to watch. So Mirador would be watcher, I think. I don't know why they picked the name, but there it is, Mirador in Texas English. Texas single malt. I've said it before, I say it now, get it through your heads. It's not single malt. It's single malt. This is not a whiskey glass. It's a whiskey glass. This is not a gray mustache. It's a gray mustache. This is not a whiskey bottle. It's a whiskey bottle. This is not a wedding ring. It's a wedding ring. 2 separate words. Not single malt. Single malt. 2 words. Learn to speak English, people. This is still, for now, the United States. Anyway, Texas single malt whiskey. Now that's a British term, single malt is. It means that it comes from a mash bill of 100% sprouted barley. That's all it means. Oh, 100% sprouted barley and from one distillery. That is all the term means. It's not some esoteric, magical abracadabra thing. So what we then have is a whiskey from Texas made from a mash of 100% barley that comes from the same distillery, in this case Balcones Distilling. And this is the only label I've seen from Balcones that really you can read in a photo. Hopefully it will work on a video. But down here at the bottom you can see, hopefully, pot distilled. Now it's really not necessary for them to put that on there. All their whiskey comes from pot stills. Came from Forsyth. Their current stills came from Forsyth in Scotland. And in order to replicate the long line arm of the original stills that they had in their original distillery, from the cap it comes up and then spirals back down and then goes to the, I don't know if they have a doubler, but either to the doubler or to the straight to the condenser. And that duplicates those extra long line arms that they had to have in that original building due to the construction of it. And that is part of why Balcones whiskey is so distinctive. It had that long line arm. In addition to the pot itself and the cap, that enormous line arm increased the amount of contact the whiskey vapor had with the copper, and that has an effect on the final flavor. This is 53% alcohol by volume, which means it's 106 proof. Where'd I put it? I got this on the 17th of November at Kelly Liquors for only $39.99. Now, I believe they just release this one once a year. I'm not certain, but I believe so, which would kind of make it a special release, but it's only $40. And it is a higher proof than their lineage barley whiskey, which is 90, I think it's 94 proof, could be 92. You can see it's got a nice color to it. Where is the age? It is aged at least 43 months in oak. 48 months is 4 years, so this is about 3.5 years. And look at the color. That's what comes of aging in the Waco climate. Now, the thing about quick aging is some of the processes involved in aging have to take X amount of time. If you have less than that, those processes can't complete, and so that affects the final product. But in that Waco climate, where the whiskey goes in and out of the wood more often, you do get more color and more flavor from the wood. It's just different because it can't complete some of those chemical processes. And that's why rapid aging is an oxymoron. You can put whiskey and wood into a machine, you can agitate it with chips and all that, and you're not rapid aging it. You are rapidly exposing it to wood, and that will take some color and flavor from the wood into the whiskey. But rapid aging completely omits some of the processes that are part and parcel of aging. And I'm not saying that the stuff that comes out of rapid aging is bad. It might actually be good, but it's not aging. It's a treatment, it's not aging. So, I know the mash bill. I know the age. I've given all those to you. I've given you the price, where I got it, when I got it. I think it's time to get into some whiskey. And immediately, that signature Balcones barley whiskey aroma. I say signature. All I've ever had from them is the lineage and this Mirador. but to me it's distinctive. If I ever have a Balcones barley whiskey that does not smell at least generally like this, it's going to surprise the living daylights out of me. The foremost component is a whole mixture of fruit. And barley tends to give a fruity nose and a fruity palate. I like Laphroaig 10, which is a Scottish whiskey. It's from the island of Islay, which means it's peated. There is one distillery on Islay that doesn't dry their barley with peat, but the others do. It's an Islay trademark. By the way, how do you spell Islay? I-S-L-A-Y. Looks like Islay. It's Islay. Scottish English owes a ton to both the Scots language and the Gaelic language, or Gaelic as they call it over there. And after a word or phrase has come from Gaelic into Scots into English, it sometimes has interesting pronunciations for the spelling. This has tropical fruit in there. I can detect mango. I don't specifically detect pineapple, but there's something in there that makes me think of pineapple. I'm getting a distinct apple note and a plum note. And that's where this gets away from what I'm used to with the lineage. The lineage is pure tropical fruit, but here you're getting that plus other fruit, which, because it's aged longer, the lineage is, I believe, 2 years, and this is almost 4, it's 3.5. And because of the higher proof here, this is, I believe it's a bottle proof or a barrel proof whiskey. Well, it's not saying so that I can find, but I believe because the age is handwritten and the ABV is handwritten, I believe it is a single barrel whiskey at barrel proof. And given the Waco climate, they must have a really low entry proof to, after 3.5 years, only have a 106 proof whiskey. Because in a hot climate, the water evaporates quicker than the alcohol, meaning the percentage of alcohol goes up, meaning the proof goes up. But I believe it's a single barrel at barrel proof. There's honey in there laid over the top of all that fruit. There's just a slight spiciness, cinnamon, I think, in the nose. But it's a delightful nose. It is almost at the point where it's too sweet and too fruity. Almost. It's right there where it is just as sweet and fruity as you could possibly want without going over the edge. I won't buy, at least not the regular, I won't buy any Glenmorangie Scotch again. It has a distinct orange note on the palate, and as I got further and further into the bottle, it took over and it became cloying, and finally, last quarter or so, I couldn't even drink it. It was like drinking orange syrup. And I don't want orange syrup from my whiskey. But this is delightful to sniff on. I could do this all night. There's some kind of a berry in there, maybe strawberries, maybe raspberry. I could pick this thing apart all night, but I'm already at 15 minutes. I'd forgotten just how creamy that mouthfeel is. It's only 106 proof. And if you're a newbie, and remember that this channel is aimed at that one niche, people who are new to whiskey. If you're a newbie, 106 might not be only. It might be way above where you're able to drink yet. And that's okay. And there are people who've been drinking whiskey for years who still prefer 80 to 90 proof. And that's all right. If you like it, it's good whiskey. And that's not original with me. I learned that 4 years ago or so in the whiskey group on MeWe from a guy named Mike Honcho. And I've said it before, I'll say it again. If that's his real name, it's the coolest name anybody ever had. Envision a bucket of honey. You cut up various kinds of fruit. Mangoes, pineapples, apples, pears, maybe something citrusy like orange. Some berries, cut them up small. Strawberries or raspberries or what have you. Take all that fruit, put it in the bucket of honey, and I know it's going to be work because honey's thick. But just swish that around for a couple of 3 days and then take a taste of it. That's this whiskey. It is fruity. It is honey sweet. Oh, mix some cinnamon in there because there's cinnamon here. And that will have come from the barrel. That is not a note that comes from barley. For most people, rye tends to provide spice. This has absolutely no rye in it. It's pure barley, sprouted barley. That's all that's in here. Remember, that's what that term single malt means. Man, I could sniff this thing all day, but then I could drink it all day too, and twice on Sundays. That is extremely good whiskey. I think maybe I prefer the lineage slightly. There is maybe just a drop more honey here than I would prefer, and the lineage doesn't have that honey component to it. But I'm quibbling. I'm picking nits. And by the way, have you heard that? You heard about nitpicking? You know where it comes from? A baby louse is called a nit. And monkeys and such grooming each other will go through, and they don't just pick the lice, but they pick the nits too, little tiny things. And so picking nits is painstaking, close, precise work. And so if you're a nitpicker, you're looking at all the little tiny things and maybe even missing what's important. But that's what it comes from, is actually literally picking nits. Man, that smells good. It's getting kind of a deeper, darker character to the nose now. And on the finish, I swallowed quicker than normal because that's what I do to focus on the finish. On the finish, oak from the tip of my tongue on back into my throat, which then, even as the oak is blooming backwards, it's turning into dark chocolate. And there's just a very slight, spicy component that might just be the alcohol. That's how slight it is. I can't be sure whether it's an actual note or it's just the heat of the alcohol. but I can still taste that dark chocolate. And just the faint leftover woodiness of the oak. And that dark finish is a perfect complement to the brightness and the sweetness of the nose and the palate. To summarize this whiskey, because if I don't move on, I am going to just be gushing all night long. Who sang that song, All Night Long? Was that Lionel Richie? I believe it was. But anyway, summary. This is a very, very good whiskey. I'll get my rating scale in a minute. Yes, my handwriting is indecipherable except by ancient Egyptians and other assorted chicken scratchers. Chicken scratcher. It's very good. I'll get into the rating scale and give you the precise rating, but this stuff is high class. Now, Balcones is one of those distilleries, either you love their stuff or you hate their stuff. Now, some of what I've had from Balcones I did not like at all. But overall, let's see, what have I not liked? Their 100 proof rye, which I don't believe they're making anymore. They have another rye out that I'm afraid to try. Because that 100 proof rye was like if you throw a bunch of grass clippings in a blender and then drink the juice. Nasty stuff. I think that's the only thing I've ever had from Balcones that I did not like. And granted, I've not had a ton because a ton isn't available here. But I've had their pot still bourbon, I've had their baby blue corn whiskey, I've had the true blue, which is a barrel proof corn whiskey. I've had the lineage barley whiskey, and now I've had this. So 5 different expressions from Balcones, 6 with the rye, and 1 out of 6 I did not like at all. The others I absolutely love, including this one. But there are some people, they can't stand anything Balcones produces. It's kind of like peat in Scotch. Either you love it or you don't. With Balcones, either you love it or you don't. And I have a theory based on the reactions of various people, whether in videos or in writing on MeWe. And the theory is that the more you want a Kentucky-style bourbon, the less you will like Balcones, because this makes absolutely no pretense to being Kentucky. People talk about Texas whiskey as though, by definition, if it's from Texas, it's very different. Well, that's not the case. TX bourbon from the Firestone and Robertson Distillery in Fort Worth tastes just like a Kentucky bourbon. If you did a blind with that and any comparable Kentucky bourbon, I don't think you could tell it with any consistency. I think if you got 100 people tasting those two double blind, they'd think both were from Kentucky at least about half the time. And then there are those which are a little more like Texas. Still, Austin has a distinctly Texas nose, but the palate leans toward Kentucky style. I have a bottle of Iron Root Harbinger, and it's so good, and I haven't reviewed it yet. I'm going to, I guarantee it. It's so good until you get to the finish, but it's so good until you get to the finish that I love it. And that is pretty close to Balcones level of distinctively Texan. And if I had not tasted Balcones whiskey until I'd been, say now, I might not have liked it either. I might got so used to Kentucky style that I wouldn't like this. But I tried, my very first Balcones whiskey was a bottle of their pot still bourbon back in December of 2021. And I started drinking whiskey in September of 2021, so This was just 2-3 months. And so I was able to evaluate Balcones on its own merits without comparing it really with Kentucky style. That was a digression. It took me about 5 minutes. And so I'm further along on the timer than I thought I would be when I got to this point. But I think it was a worthwhile digression so that you know something about what you're getting into. Now, as I said, I have my Hick whiskey scale here, where 8 is at the top, 1 is at the bottom, 8 is the best, 1 is the worst. And I'm going to give this the top rating, 8. Mighty fine. That is 5 stars out of 5. It's 100 out of 100, 10 out of 10. As I say, I believe I might like the lineage about that much better. But that's like after 100 miles or 500 miles of racing, and there's that much separating winner from second place. And I've seen it happen. I remember when Kevin Harvick beat Mark Martin by about that much at the line after 500 miles of racing. That is by how much I think I prefer the lineage over the Mirador. Mighty fine whiskey. Buy it. If you've not had Balcones before, and this does not drink hot. I said earlier that if you're new to whiskey, 106 proof might be too much for you, and it might be. But this doesn't drink like 106. It drinks like 96 or even 90 proof. If you are experienced with whiskey and you're willing to try something that is totally unlike anything that ever come out of Kentucky, and you do like barley whiskey, try this, if you can find it. If it is a special release that comes out once a year, you may not be able to find it. You might have to wait till next year. And Balcones seems to have real spotty distribution, so you might not find it anyways. But if you can, I highly recommend this whiskey. I recommend you buy it. Learn it, live it, love it, as El Rushbo used to say. Duddle up, duddle up, duddle up. I don't have a stack of stuff here, but I got one at work. Oh, brother, do I. Okay, then. I know there are people out there who hate Rush Limbaugh with a purple passion, and that's your right. You have a right to your opinion. I don't hate him. I come to disagree with him on a lot of things. But the dude was entertaining. Oh, man. I don't claim to be a tenth that entertaining. What I do claim is that I'm going to actually wrap this up before I hit 30 minutes by barley. This being a Texas whiskey, me being an adopted Texan, as if you can't tell from the way I talk. Yeehaw!